Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, as I like to point out each and every day, expands our base. There is so much to talk about this morning, and let's begin with the fact that sometime this afternoon, the House of Representatives will reconvene. The reconvening of the House means that a bill will be passed that will give the government the ability to reopen. Let me hasten to point out that none of the issues involved in the decision to shut down the government, either by Democrats or by Republicans, are going to be resolved. All that's happening is that there will be an agreement to reopen the government. And that means that we will again, in January, in no doubt, confront the same series of issues. The question of our food stamp program. The president yesterday announced more cuts should be made, but there are more and more people who need the benefits. And of course, we deal with another fascinating question. What will happen to the leadership of the Democratic Party? In the United States Senate, there is now deep distress about Leader Schumer's decisions. Will he be overthrown? It's a great question. Nobody knows the answer. All we know is that in the end, Senator Schumer voted against this legislation, which would reopen, because, as the Democrats are pointing out, they got nothing. Nothing. And what did Donald Trump get? Nothing. Nobody really got anything as a result of this shutdown. And so we will see the House reconvene. Now, there's another point here having to do with the House reconvening. It means that a new representative from Arizona will finally be sworn in as a member of the House. And what that means is the discharge resolution dealing with the Epstein files will, in fact, be voted upon and will no doubt pass, and in fact, may pick up as many as 30 Republican votes. The Epstein matter is an important question because the White House, for some reason, does not want these files released. Of course, it appears clear to me that the reason is that Donald Trump is mentioned innumerable times. Is he guilty of any particular crime? No one knows, because we haven't seen the content of the files, and some emails were released today, but they're inconclusive. They only point out what we already know, and that is that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were close friends, confidants, and, in fact, that Donald Trump somehow is saying he knew nothing. It is a fascinating moment. And so, between the House coming back, the shutdown seemingly coming to an end, at least for now, the Epstein file release, well, that's where our attention has been riveted. Now, I want to point out I was out for dinner last night with someone who listens to this podcast regularly, who asked me a question. He said, "What about Ukraine?" There's no word about Ukraine. There's no headline about Ukraine, and yet we know that the Russians continue to pound Ukraine every single day. And the Ukrainians continue to try to resist. We also know that Donald Trump has made the decision, at least for the time being, not to send Tomahawk missiles to the Ukrainians. And of course, the Ukrainians are fighting for their independence with one hand tied behind their back. And so the question my friend asked, dealing with Ukraine, was a very simple one. He said, "John, explain to me, why is the world standing by and doing nothing?" And the answer is because of nuclear weapons. Do you remember? And he asked me about that 1995 agreement signed by the United States, Great Britain, and Russia, then led by Boris Yeltsin, that in return for giving up their nuclear stockpile, Ukraine's independence would be guaranteed by the United States and Great Britain. And of course, nothing happened. There was no guarantee that could be held because Putin is determined to reestablish the old Russian or Soviet empire. And so, who is caught in the middle on all of this? The Ukrainians. And where are the questions being posed to Donald Trump? Non existent. Because Donald Trump seems to be obsessed with far more important issues. For instance, tearing down the East Wing of the White House. For example, putting in a new bathroom in the White House that reflects his taste in gold and marble. For example, a continuing effort to remodel the White House, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And he's very proud of it. He actually did a tour with a Fox News host showing all of the improvements that are now being made in the White House. That seems to be what Donald Trump is preoccupied about. And the question of food stamps, the question of health care, the questions of vital concern to the American people, including the economy, nary a word. Indeed, I was stunned when Donald Trump had the audacity to say that things are better today than they were a year ago under Joe Biden. We know that Donald Trump promised his constituents that prices would come down from day one, and we know he has not fulfilled that promise. So the question becomes, is he a Teflon president? Remember that expression? It was used about Ronald Reagan. Is he, in fact, a Teflon president? Will he be held accountable? And the answer is, unless the Republicans themselves hold him accountable, at least for the time being, there will be no accountability. And let's talk about the White House dismissing the idea of co-equal branches of government. I've talked about this with you before, but I want to do it again, because to me, it is so essential. And it is exemplified by former Associate Justice Anthony Kennedy of the United States Supreme Court, who in a new book, and yes, in his interviews, has indicated the greatest threat to democracy is the collapse of co-equal branches of government. And what are you listening to from the White House? The White House press secretary says, we don't believe in co-equal branches of government. There is a unitary presidency. And that, I must tell you, disturbs me profoundly. Because there is no check on this president. You may have heard that a group of people went to court to try to stop the president from tearing down the East Wing of the White House. The problem is, when they went to court, the action had already been taken. And even though they may win on the principle, the reality is a stark one. There are real issues which we confront in this country and in this world. And there is a real question about a loyal opposition. Yesterday was Armistice Day, and what we now know as Veterans Day. Oh, and what Donald Trump wants to call Victory Day. Of course, I guess he doesn't know his history. VE, Victory in Europe Day, and VJ Day, Victory over Japan Day. Victory was part of the whole essence, but this, to me, will always be Armistice Day and Veterans Day rolled into one. And the idea of simply changing names, well, it's astounding to me. What makes it even more unpalatable is that people go along with it. Can you imagine? People going along with changing names. Yesterday, the question came up, is it the Department of War or is it the Department of Defense? My answer is that legally it is the Department of Defense, and the appropriations which are made by Congress are made to the Department of Defense. And Donald Trump and his Secretary of Defense can make all the contrary claims they want. They can put up all the signs that they want. But the truth must prevail. And the truth is, it is the Department of Defense. And to talk about Victory Day, and by the way, he cited France as an example. Their celebrations are victories, and we are going to have victories. Doesn't he understand? Doesn't he get it? That the United States is not like any other country. We are an exceptional nation, and we should have exceptional boundaries, which includes, very importantly, this whole question of co-equal branches of government. We are all waiting now for the United States Supreme Court to speak. Yesterday, I spoke about the fact that the Supreme Court has declined to take up the question of same-sex marriages. And that means that same-sex marriage will remain part of the American process. And Donald Trump, I think, had better understand that if the Supreme Court issues a ruling, he has to abide by it. Now, we are hearing talk from the White House that is absolutely fascinating. The talk is, gee, if we don't like the decision, maybe we won't enforce it. Because their belief is that the president and the presidency should have final say. That's not the way the American system works. Now, for those of you who are tuning in to this podcast for the first time, let me explain that for many years I was a Republican. I am now a Democrat. But the simple truth is that for those who say we're independents, doesn't mean anything. There's no force in America that embraces the idea of independence. What we have are swing voters. And that's where the Republicans and the Democrats are battling at this moment for votes. All of the redistricting taking place in this country, designed, I might add, by the White House to benefit the Republicans in the upcoming midterm elections, I hope are for naught. I believe very strongly in the American election process. And when Donald Trump proclaims that ballots should not be counted if they are not cast on Election Day, when there is now the Supreme Court considering the question of whether or not ballots that arrive late, although they were mailed on time, whether they should be counted. This is a real question that strikes at the heart, the essential heart of American democracy. My goal on Around the Political World with John Rothman is to give you more information, to make you think, and I hope that you will participate in the discussion either by going to my LinkedIn page or emailing me directly or letting me know what your views are through the variety of mediums that we have. This is an important question, the future of America and who we are as a nation. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And I want to give you an update about this podcast. The show has been getting so much positive attention that we are excited to bring on advertising support. This will help us to create more opportunities for Around the Political World, and we're happy to share some exciting offers that you will be able to enjoy. So that means you'll be hearing some dynamic and host-read ads. I say dynamic because I'm counting on there being dynamic material. We're reviewing that now. We're happy to enter into this partnership. We believe it will help Around the Political World with John Rothman to expand. And that, of course, is always our goal. So make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Share an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, to the wonderful producer of this program, Gogo Zoger. Well, Gogo, you can see we're doing it. We're giving a few more minutes of discussion. We're asking for more input. We're even going after advertisers. So if you're interested, let us know. I am John Rothman, and you are listening to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'll be back tomorrow, and believe me, there will be a lot to discuss. See you then.